can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie. On today's show, I'm going to be hitting on the life and legacy of two-time former heavyweight champion Big George Foreman, who sadly passed away yesterday. Also going to hit on the happenings in East Rutherford, New Jersey, acquiring quarterback Jameis Winston. The Giants finally add a quarterback. And now it's a matter of, are they going to pair this quarterback in a mentor role with maybe a Shador Sanders? Going to hit on that. A Yankee opting out of his deal, going back into the free agency pool. Rangers still kind of scrapping and fighting for their lives. And the Knicks looking for some direction. But we're going to start this up with George Foreman. I must say, obviously, I didn't catch the beginning of George Foreman's career because that was way before my time, when he was the imposing force, power wise, uh, just kind of like the body of an Adonis back then, just a big dude, muscled out. He suffered the first loss of his career when he was on top of the mountain to the incomparable Muhammad Ali. And that loss in Zaire, which was one of the biggest fights of that era, led to Foreman taking a huge layoff from boxing, close to 2 decades. He returns going on 40, and it ultimately culminates in him having a second stint as heavyweight champion of the world, which so many saw on HBO Boxing, the win over Michael Moorer, who was constantly being told to avoid the big punch power of George Foreman, because in George Foreman's second stanza of his career, he was not fast, but he still knew how to cut off the ring and still elude his opponents into taking one big shot. Because George was the kind of fighter that would take five and give you back one, but the one that he would give you back would knock you on your ass. And George Foreman always had that power that needed to be respected, and so many fighters tried to test it and just found out the wrong way. This is a man who I think only did it for two reasons, talking about the boxing: for the love of the sport and for the passion of the sport. Because when you walk away from a sport for that long, You work on yourself as an individual. He became a pastor. You become right with God. You find your faith. I believe that that's the kind of situation where George wanted to iron out things in his personal life before coming back to that realm of his professional life. A great salesman, like I said at the top of it, the Foreman grill, one of the most popular appliances in American homes, kind of like a shortcut to grilling, man. If you don't want to go outside, you could put it right on your kitchen island, easy, accessible, and just a great pitch man. But this is a guy that I think really gave the boxing fans a gift when he came back and fought a lot of the younger guys that were giving up 15 to sometimes 20 years to him. He came up short against Evander Holyfield, but I think that was a match that put notice that Foreman could potentially be champion again. And during that era, he and Mike Tyson often shared the light on HBO Sports, where Foreman would be the first fight, followed by Tyson. There were rumblings when Foreman first came back, when Tyson was the heavyweight champion, and at that time in his career, very invincible. And part of the reason why they never fought is because when Foreman came back into the heavyweight division, he wasn't ranked. And although it would have been a hell of a gate, I think Tyson's camp didn't see it as something that they wanted to do. I also think Tyson had a high reverence for fighters that were considerably older, that even go back to the Ali era. Ali was Tyson's personal boxing hero, and Tyson avenged Ali when he knocked out Larry Holmes, because a lot of people feel that Muhammad Ali had no business in the ring with Larry Holmes. Ali was already older, and some people feel that the beating that he took in that fight may have even advanced his Parkinson's. Of course, I'm not a doctor. But George Foreman, just so many great moments in the ring. He did a wonderful job as a color commentator for HBO Sports. And I think he kind of gave most boxing fans the vibe that he really could have been any of our grandfathers. Just a very easygoing, hilarious guy who always told it like it is. And, 45-year-old heavyweight champion, knocking out a man half his age when he was completely down on the scorecards. I must say, with the exception of Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson in Tokyo, probably the second most memorable moment for me as a young boxing fan. I would say that Bo Holyfield 2, which was Riddick Bowe's first professional loss when Evander Holyfield regained his titles, that would be another memorable moment. Seeing that guy come in to the ring, which was a very scary situation, in a parachute, that was scary. Um, Mike Tyson knocking out Michael Spinks. I was so very young, but that would probably be my first exposure to boxing. But George Foreman, you will be missed, and thank you for all the phenomenal memories. Um, there'll never be another George Foreman, and there certainly won't be someone who could take that kind of a layoff, come back, and win it again. I mean, I am a huge, huge Mike Tyson fan, and whether he was kind of taming himself to get the bigger payout in the Paul fight, or even if you back it up 15 years, Mike Tyson looked nothing at that age like George Foreman did, and there's something to be said about that. George Foreman always had that punching power, and I think that's what made him a relevant opponent for some of the best fighters during the 90s era. And, Evander Holyfield, although he walked away with a victory, he felt that power. The late Tommy Morrison from Rocky fame, he felt that power, and quite frankly, were it not for the rope-a-dope, maybe he beats the great Muhammad Ali, but Ali had just a tremendous strategy, because going into that fight, George Foreman really had the look of invincibility, similar to like Tyson had in the 80s. But When you talk about a person who just accentuated humility, class, and just kind of really drew you in, whether he was in the ring, out of the ring commentating, or just telling a great boxing story. George Foreman was all that and then some. And no matter what I say here, would not do it enough proper justice. But I was very sad to be informed of that news yesterday. And I just want to say, George Foreman, you were incredible. And my condolences to your family. Yes, he was. He certainly was amazing. Hard to follow that up, but I'm going to do my best. The New York Knickerbockers right now are looking for some direction as the loss of Jalen Brunson and just the wear and tear of the season is really getting on them now. Losing to the lowly Hornets a couple nights ago, just getting ran out of the gym, really. And I think a lot of the warts are starting to show on Tom Thibodeau's style of just beating down, beating down, beating down his players. And with no clear return when Brunson is coming back, I have alluded to this on the show many times that I believe the Knicks' ceiling is rather low right now. Even if Brunson does return, and hypothetically, let's say they get past Detroit in round one, you're going to have a hungry, deep Celtic team that you have not been able to beat all year. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty. Knicks are, barring a total meltdown, are pretty much locked into the three. So they're going to be playing whoever is in the sixth seed. And, I want to reiterate to Knicks fans that no matter how this goes, this is a season to be proud of. The greatest halfway point for a Knicks season, halfway point, of course, meaning the All-Star break, not really the halfway point. But, yeah, not the highest expectations for the Knicks, but I am hoping that in the offseason, they are able to fill out a few more roster spots, give that bench a little more, just a little more. And I'll be honest, Tom Thibodeau, in terms of what his ceiling is and what kind of winner he could be, I must admit that I think he's limited. He's a coach I respect. He has had success in two different places, Chicago and Minnesota alike. If Derrick Rose doesn't get that horrific injury, maybe things go a little differently in Chicago. But quite frankly, I just don't think that his coaching style translates to what a winner will be in today's NBA. Rest minutes are a big deal. I think that a lot of the analytics that help drive the NBA, Coach Thibodeau just ignores. And, you're not doing your team a service when you're not allowing your deeper parts of your bench to get valuable playing time because they may be called upon in the biggest moments. So that's my 2 cents on that. New York Rangers, game today at 1 p.m. against the Vancouver Canucks. Rangers are sitting at 72 points, outside looking in of the final wild card spot for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they are currently tied with their in-state rivals, the New York Islanders. Islanders are on a 3-game winning streak. Rangers are on a 3-game losing streak. Rangers really need to pick up the dub today. And they need a little help going into the final 10 games of the season. So we're going to see if the Rangers can do enough and if these latter moves made by the front office will produce a playoff berth. Missing the playoffs after last year's playoff run, very, very disappointing for all Ranger fans, and really a shocker to anybody who covers the NHL. But on a happy note, welcome to Big Blue. Welcome to New York City, Jameis Winston. I must say, man, Michael Strahan hit it on the head when he said that this was going to be a quality pickup. And, Saquon kind of manifested this during Super Bowl week where Jameis was playing the role of part of the media and flat out asked Saquon, hey, man, I'm looking for a job. And Saquon, in a playful way, said that the New York Giants need a quarterback. Some people may have taken that the wrong way, that that was a dig at Daniel Jones. But when you consider that Daniel Jones was invited to the Super Bowl by Saquon. I don't really think there's any bad blood there. I think Saquon was just having a little fun in the moment. As Jameis Winston goes, he gives the New York Football Giants a live arm, a guy who can get the most, in my opinion, out of wide receiver Malik Neighbors. The one negative on Jameis's game is that he has had a propensity of throwing a lot of interceptions. But when I consider the maturity that he brings, a knowledge of where he is at this point of his career, where I don't think his end game is holding back a young player that he might mentor, that could be a Shador Sanders, that could maybe be a Jackson Dart. I think it's invaluable to have that kind of presence in the locker room. And this is a position that needs to be respected in that locker room, and it needs to be driven by a real leader. And I think that's one thing that Jameis Winston will bring to the New York Football Giants this year. From the mentor role, I must admit that he and Shador just seem to make too much sense. Now, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I think if the New York Giants take Shador at pick 3, it's a reach. Not if Travis Hunter's on that board, not if Abdul Carter's on that board. And now that you have signed a quarterback with an incentive-laden deal that can go up to 16 mil, I think the Giants might be showing their hand a little that maybe they are not that thirsty to draft somebody that early in this draft at the quarterback position. But time will reveal that. It's going to be so very interesting to see what he brings. But I think he has the perfect personality to play in the big city, and that's something that I find rather exciting. You know, New York Giant fans have long suffered, looking for that next quarterback post Eli Manning. And that's the thing. Jameis has not had as much success as he liked, and his humble nature has admitted that. But when you consider that he was replaced in Tampa Bay, and he is a former number 1 overall pick, when he was replaced by Tom Brady, I think Jameis gave the best answer possible. He's like, I think I'm still pretty good. I mean, they had to get the greatest quarterback ever to replace me. He had the infamous 5,000-yard season while throwing 30 touchdowns as well as 30 picks. But I'll tell you what, I'd be more than happy to take 25 touchdowns versus maybe 13 picks. I think that Giant fans would welcome that stat line. And I think that he's going to have some rope. I don't think it's going to be a big push for him to just immediately give it up to whoever replaces him. Now, once again, I said incentive-laden deal. So if they do get a Shador Sanders, and the trend in today's NFL has been that these kids get on the field quicker and quicker, it could be a similar situation to when Kurt Warner only started 9 games for the Giants back in '04 and made way for Eli Manning, where the Giants sacrificed their season because that particular year they had a better chance to go to the playoffs at Warner, but they wanted Eli to get his feet wet, and immediately it paid dividends. '05, the Giants won the East, and it started a streak of consecutive years going to the playoffs, ultimately culminating in a Super Bowl victory in Eli's 4th season in the league. The next year, they were the 1 seed. So the point to be made is the trend in the NFL for quite some time has been to bring in the high-profile rookies early. Now, Patrick Mahomes did sit almost the complete year. He got 1 start in his rookie year. But it's going to be very interesting to see how the Giants nurture the situation with the veteran Winston and whoever they may draft. But I must admit, I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. New York Yankees, Dom Smith, opting out of his contract. He will hit free agency. And basically, although he is having a pretty good spring, I think the big reason behind this is the New York Yankees view Ben Rice as more of a higher ceiling and someone who they should invest in a little harder than Dom Smith. Dom Smith has always been a pretty good hitter. He most recently was with the Red Sox, but had his most success with the New York Mets. I just think this is a situation where the Yankees want to reward Ben Rice for having a good spring, and I think Ben Rice is making this team, and he's going to be backing up Paul Goldschmidt at first. Yankees still have a gaping question mark and hole at third base that they've got to figure out now that Jazz Chisholm has gone back to second base. Gleyber Torres is no longer there. And it looks like Oswaldo Cabrera, maybe Peraza. It's going to be a little bit of a committee approach. But the Yankees got to figure out third base in the absence of DJ LeMahieu. Giancarlo Stanton is going to be out for a while. And that's part of the reason why they had leverage with the DH situation where a guy like Dom Smith as well as Ben Rice both could have made the team. You know, reigning AL Rookie of the Year, Luis Heel, he's going to be out for the better part of 3 months, dating back to last month. So we're going to see how this plays out. But Yankees definitely got to get over the hump immediately with the many injuries. But they proved last year with Garrett Cole's absence for half the year that they were able to overcome that, and it culminated into a 41st pennant, which is a major league best. We all know that their World Series victories are as well. But if there's anything positive to take from this, I would say that if something's going to go wrong, you want it to happen early, as opposed to later in the year in the dog days of summer. And we saw what Stanton brought them last year in the playoffs. They're going to need some pop. They're going to need Goldie and Bellinger to step in and do their thing. I am very confident that Jazz Chisholm in a full season with the New York Yankees is going to be a run producer, and he's going to be among the leaders in stolen bases. The Yankees definitely trended upward in being more aggressive on the base pads after many years of, being criticized for being a little too stagnant on the bases. But the Yankees, in my opinion, have a shutdown bullpen. But when you lose Garrett Cole for the year, it's going to be very hard. You don't replace him. You just try to deal with it. And it's going to put a lot on Max Fried, the newly acquired former Atlanta Brave, who has the ability to be an ace in his absence. It puts a lot on big money man Carlos Rodon. He has to pitch better. Marcus Stroman gets a second life because of this injury, and we'll see how things play out. Another guy that could be opting out, but will probably make the team if he chooses to stay, is Carlos Carrasco, the courageous cancer survivor, wily veteran. I think he brings a lot to the Yankees. And I think he's going to probably hang around, and you will see Carlos Carrasco in pinstripes this year. Shouts out to my man Idris Salam on some recent success with his V-Mix on live365.com. Definitely give Idris's radio station a look and make it a point to check out the Casual Convo show as well as the Basement Show with Mr. Nass, fellow podcasters who are doing their thing. Until next time, I am Richie. Enjoy your weekend. And lastly, man, just want to say about March Madness, should be to no one's surprise. My bracket is already busted. Kind of exciting to see what St. John's could do. It's been so long since they've been relevant, so that is very exciting. We'll see what happens there. But until next time, I am Richie. Have a great day.